Welcome to the Freedom Legal Podcast, where you can come to liberate your lifestyle, liberate your practice, and liberate your relationships. We deliver the most up-to-date insights into the most effective and efficient lifestyle designs, business plans, marketing plans, automation software, and delegation strategies for solo practice lawyers and attorneys. Here is your host, experienced lawyer, writer, and entrepreneur, Jonathan Jaussi.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to a new episode of the Freedom Legal Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Jaussi. I've been in solo practice for over 15 years. Since then, I've also mentored and coached new solo and small practice attorneys. Here at the Freedom Legal Podcast, I and my guest co-hosts will provide weekly tools, resources, and success stories for solo attorneys who want to follow proven business and marketing plans while maintaining a critical work-life balance. Today, I'll be joined by Cory Broadbent. Cory is a solo practice attorney and owner of the Broadbent law firm. He was born and raised in Utah County. He graduated from Brigham Young University in 2001, and he graduated from the Arizona State University Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law in 2005, one of the best public law schools in the nation. He was a member of the moot court and trial teams and a center scholar in the College of Law's prestigious Law, Science, and Technology Center, the national leader in analysis between law and technology. He has run his own private practice for the last 6 years. So tell me a little bit about your practice.
My practice is strange. This is one of the unique parts, I think, in doing this podcast. I still am of counsel with a firm in Arizona, which takes up about 50% of my time, doing kind of large real estate litigation. And then my practice here is mainly small businesses, real estate stuff, eminent domain work, some small personal injury cases, but basically civil litigation here.
I would really like to talk about this premise, this point that I want to challenge, this idea that lawyers are supposed to be cranky old curmudgeons. We're supposed to be unhappy. And maybe if you could share some ideas from your practice about happiness and just enjoying the practice and things that you've learned, and maybe a story of someone you've seen that does it well or how you've done it well. I'd love to hear that. Anything of that, like ringing any bells for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the big challenge, isn't it? When you're in law school, everyone tells you that you're going to have to be working, 2,000 hours a year, and you're going to have to be there 14 hours a day. And frankly, that was my experience. When I first graduated, I worked for a big firm and worked a ton of hours and didn't see wife and child. I loved the firm, didn't love the type of work, just didn't fulfill me because it felt like, again, I was picking fights on behalf of people that I didn't agree with their fight, frankly.
Right.
So I found that in order to kind of maintain that balance, it is a conscious effort. If you just let it kind of go floating along, it'll eat you alive. And so I have found that if I don't schedule, I like to plan an international trip once a year that I recharge on, where I'm gone 10 days, 12 days, that I plan every year to be gone somewhere. I like to plan either events with my son where we can, we'll go to the rec center, we'll do something, but I try to put it in the calendar and make it an actually dedicated event. Or in the wintertime, I'll try to pick, one day a month where I can go skiing, or in the summer, one day a month when I can go golfing. But if I don't put that in my calendar, it feels like it doesn't happen because you can just keep working forever.
Yes.
And if I don't make those priorities, then I feel out of balance and frankly just less satisfied with both the practice and just life. And so that's been the thing that I've tried to work hard at now, is actually making it a priority to schedule it.
Gone as far as scheduling out an entire year's worth of vacations on December 30th is something I do over my holiday break so that it's on the calendar, and when people are trying to put me up for depositions or whatever kind of meeting, I'm actually already penned out for those days.
That's right. No, I think that's exactly how it has to be done, because otherwise, the year slips by so fast in the practice that if you don't have that already pre-booked, you'll look up and it'll be in October, November, and you've not done anything to kind of help keep that balance in place. And unfortunately, I tell myself it's cheaper than therapy if I just schedule myself out, a way to kind of rebalance my mentality and get to a good place that way.
Absolutely. I was just reading Sean Acor's book, The Happiness Advantage, and what you said there reminded me of a quote. Essentially, research shows that there's something like 37% more effective. People are 37% more effective when they are happy in their jobs. I mean, doctors make quicker diagnoses, attorneys are sharper. These are just. It seems that we've got this idea that we work really hard and achieve a bunch of stuff, and then we'll be happy, when in fact the science is, as Sean puts out in his book, the science is the opposite. We're happy and then we're effective. It seems to be like we really do need to balance these things in order to be good at what we do, or at least to be our best.
At least be our most effective. Yep.
Absolutely.
Do good work requires that balance.
Absolutely. So how do you practice law without getting all of your clients' negative emotions and stress on you? That's an interesting concept, because we get this as lawyers. We get this somewhere. It doesn't just come out of the ether. We have some of this stress that's our own thinking patterns, our own way of doing things. We have a lot of this as the environment and expectation of judges, of clients, of employers. How do you do it and not get it all over you and take it home with you, or let it make you a miserable old curmudgeon? How do you do it?
That, I think, is the really hard thing to do. My mentor, when I first graduated and was working in Phoenix, kind of made that his priority my first year, saying, look, yes, you can care, and yes, you should be passionate, but you can't take it home with you, or it'll kill you. And he said, these are people that, obviously, with all of our clients, we want to help, we want to do good work for them, we want to be successful for them and for us. But I think if you let it eat you alive, much like a doctor who can't seem to leave it to the hospital or any other kind of high-stress profession, if you take it home, again, then it shifts you out of balance. It affects your personal relationships, affects your kids, affects your mentality, affects your exercise regimen, affects your health. And so I think it's really going back to that idea of it being a conscious effort to say, I can appreciate this and I will work hard and I will do my very best for this client, but I have to also have my own life and take care of my own stuff first.
Absolutely. And I like the idea you shared earlier about prioritization. A lot of people are also raised with the idea that prioritizing yourself first is selfish. But there's just a scientific reality of the fact that, I can't give from an empty hand. I need to have gathered up the strength inside myself, taken care of myself to where I can carry the other people in my life in the ways that I carry them, and I can help other people out. And so I think that really goes along that theme of taking care of yourself so that you can take care of others, and putting yourself first so that you're able to show up for the people you need to show up for.
Yeah, because I think it's natural or instinctual to want to put up that wall to protect ourselves and want to try to be our most effective by not letting it come home with us. But at the same time, I think we're at our best as practitioners when we're human.
Absolutely. So to that end, being human, who is the happiest attorney you've ever met? The person who was having the most fun practicing law, and what did he or she do? What do you think were the elements they brought into their practice that made them have a happy experience?
Well, again, probably my mentor in Phoenix. He's a guy named Franklin Jeans. He's now almost 80. I've known him 10, 12 years. Maybe the happiest lawyer I've ever met, mainly because I think he was intellectually curious. He got a lot of pleasure out of solving the puzzles that the law sometimes presents. But he also was really good about making life outside a priority. He always would tell me, look, your family's the most important thing. Your wife's the most important thing. You should go home and spend time with your kids, and then we'll come back tomorrow and work really hard. Yeah. But he was really good at saying, this is an interesting puzzle, and I like it, and it's curious, but we also have to go home and live other lives too, and those two things actually work. And he is remarkably happy, like I say, very well adjusted. He was kind of what I aspired to be in the long run. He's still practicing, like I say, at 78, 79, and still curious about it.
Fascinating, because obviously at 78, 79, it's a passion. You don't keep doing that at that age unless you absolutely have to, or unless you love it. And he's found a way to love it.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I think he found a way to love it by doing those things that he really thinks are interesting. He doesn't take cases he doesn't like. He doesn't do work just to do work. He does work that he thinks is interesting and he's passionate about, but is also good at leaving work at home. I'm sorry, leaving work at the office and then going home.
So I hear two things happening there. Something that we find interesting is easier to keep doing. It's more pleasant to keep doing. And as I think about that, I'm thinking, okay, I'm listening to, maybe the objection of the new lawyer saying, but I don't have that luxury. I've got to just take what comes in the door. So, and then that may be so. You may just need to take the opportunities that are placed in front of you. However, is there a way for you to do those in an interesting way? Is there a way for you to bring your interests, your passions, your personality out into that in a way that's more fulfilling, in a way that connects with you and makes your mind invigorated and makes your emotional state more healthy? I think there is, and that's a question every lawyer has to answer for his or herself. Like, okay, how do I bring myself into this work? I also hear, the idea of boundaries being necessary in business, and it's something we as lawyers, I think, get confronted with so regularly. I mean, clients, I don't know about your clients, Cory, but mine kind of expect me to be on call, especially in the day and age of the cell phone. Everyone knows you got your cell phone right with you, and they think, well, I just got a quick question, so I'm going to, ask that question. Well, if clients have your cell phone, or if they have an expectation you're just always going to be there, if they're thinking about it, well, you're thinking about it, and that's just how it's going to go. So how do you set good boundaries like your mentor taught there? How do you put those walls up without walling off these clients that you need?
Well, I want to go back to one of your original questions, which was, how do you balance that, especially as a young lawyer or in your first year of solo practice? Because you're right, those first years, you need to feed yourself, you need to feed your family. I mean, you have to take the work that comes in. But I think it's important from an early stage to say, what kind of work do I really like, and actually pursue it.
Yeah.
Advertise for it. Make good contacts with people in that industry. I really like, for example, eminent domain work, and so tried to make that a priority to go out and do stuff that will bring in eminent domain work, because it actually, I think, is interesting. It pleases me intellectually, personally. I think suits my skill set. Whereas I learned while a clerk in law school, there were certain types of the law that I just did not like and probably was never going to be very good at. And they wouldn't please me. And so I think it's a conscious effort, again, back to our kind of mindfulness or our balance discussion, that I think you have to very early on say, what is it that I like? And I think you can dabble and try a bunch of different things to see what it is, but I think you have to be conscious in pursuing it. You have to be conscious in trying to get that type of work. I think the other side of that equation sometimes is even if it's not necessarily work that I love, if it's a client that I love. I've got several clients that I'm really good friends with. They are interesting, dynamic, good people that I like spending time with, to where sometimes I'll do work for them that isn't necessarily my favorite, but I love spending time with them and we have a great relationship, and that makes it enjoyable because I like spending time with them. So I think it's either you like the people you're doing work with or you like the type of work, but you have to make that a priority again to go pursue it and not just say, I'm going to throw up my shingle and I'm going to put everything on my website and I'll take any kind of work that comes in, because I think inevitably it'll grind you down because it won't fulfill you the same way.
What are some of your thoughts on happiness as a priority? We've talked about prioritizing things. We've talked about setting boundaries. What about happiness in your profession as a priority?
Yeah, no, I think trying to balance it so that you can be happy should be the goal. You should be both productive and happy. There's this book that I read a month or two ago called 10% Happier by a guy named Dan Harris. And Dan Harris was a famous broadcaster and kind of had a freak out on national television and kind of went about this path. He uses mindfulness and kind of meditation, but his whole point was, look, I can't make you all the way happy, but if you're just a little bit happy in your daily life, this 10% number, all these other things start falling into place. Your profession gets better, your personal relationships get better, your self-esteem gets better, your health gets better, all these things. But with him, he had to make it a priority. And so I've kind of tried to take that idea of saying, you can do good work and you should do good work, but you should also be able to make choices that lead to happiness, hopefully. Because if we're not getting happier, then what's the point?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What's the point? And then I think to that I would add that goes right along, I think right along with it, is the idea is that happiness is not an objective standard. We are constantly looking for objective standards in the law, right? Give me the black letter law. What law should the court apply? What principle, what standard, etc. However, I think because of advertising and how we were acculturated, just as people in general, that we tend to believe that happiness is an objective standard. If I do all of these different things, then I will be happy. When in fact, we get to decide. We get to choose what happiness looks like. We get to define what success is to a large degree subjectively ourselves.
Right. Well, and frankly, it's not something that once you get there, you're now done. I'm now happy, so I'm now finished. I think it's obviously a subjective thing that comes and goes that depends on your work. Depends on what you put into it. Depends on, depends on your health. Depends on your relationships. Depends on your hobbies. Depends on, what it is you do to try to generate that. Depends, frankly, if I feel like I'm doing good work, I'm happier because I feel like I'm actually bringing value both to my clients and society. But it is something that I think it has to be pursued. You can't just sit in the stream and wait for happiness to kind of wash down to you. It's something that you kind of have to make a conscious choice to go after.
So you gotta wanna.
Yeah.
And I think
you've got to want to balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you understand that what makes you happy this year may not necessarily light your fire next year. It's a process of exploration and discovery. Okay, well, we are closing in on the end of my time with you. You've been very generous. I really appreciate it. Anything else you want our audience to know on this topic of happiness and just generally that lawyers deserve to have a good, healthy, happy life?
No, thank you for having me on. This was frankly not the topic I expected to ever talk about on a law podcast. Happiness, as you mentioned, is not something that I think lawyers make a priority very much.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's interesting to get that topic out there, if nothing else, to have people talking about it.
Yeah. So I want to wrap this episode up by reiterating the core concept we've talked about today, which is lawyers can choose happiness in their profession, in their relationships, and in their practice. We really can set the boundaries in place that we need in order to have life-work balance. We deserve to be happy as we pursue our careers. That's the takeaway. You can view and download the resources for this podcast on the podcast webpage. You can also find the link for this in the description. For more information on Cory, you can visit broadbentlawfirm.com. To learn more about working with me or being a guest on the Freedom Legal Podcast, visit jonathanyausi.com. We look to see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Freedom Legal Podcast. Please visit the podcast website to submit your questions and feedback. Let us help you liberate your lifestyle, liberate your practice, and liberate your relationships. We'll see you next time.